afternoon, good folks, and welcome to this special meeting of the City of Muskegon City Commission for our budget revenue review, initial review of budget revenues for this coming fiscal year. So that we may begin, can we get roll call, please? You got some water down there?
I'm sorry. Commissioner Gorman, absent. Commissioner Koshin, absent. Vice Mayor St. Clair.
Here.
Mayor Johnson.
Here.
Commissioner Kildo.
Here.
Commissioner Keener.
Here.
Commissioner German.
Here.
Thank you. We have quorum. Welcome, sir. If you care to introduce yourself, you're the man of the hour.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Kenneth Grant, the Finance Director.
Good evening and welcome. So you got some information to share with us, eh?
Yes, I do. So tonight I just wanted to give the Commission and the citizens an overview of how revenue works and where it comes from. So unlike most companies, they sell cost of goods and things like that, and that's how you generate your revenue. For cities, we get our stuff, our revenue from fees, property taxes, income taxes, services that we provide our citizens like water and sewer. So that's where we get our revenue from. And so I'm going to start off with an overview of what the city takes in overall is all our revenues, and then we're going to kind of go down to the general fund and then go to the business funds, which are the water, sewer, and marina. So overall, the city, on this next slide, you will see that the city, we collect revenue from the general fund, major streets, special revenue funds, capital projects, the marina, business types are water and sewer, internal services, and other components, and I would kind of break those down. But as you can see on this chart, that our biggest sources of revenue come from the general fund, which is about 48%, and every year our overall collections is between $90 and $100 million a year. So it depends on the year that how much we get. Sometimes we get one-time revenue sources, and I will go over that in the future slides. So you can see that this is the whole pie right here. And so our funds come from various sources. I just wanted you guys to be aware that we collect the different revenues from different sources, and I will go over more.
Okay.
And as you can see on here, we have like smaller pies, and I will go over some.
Commissioners, as we're moving forward with this, if you do have questions, jot them down, and we'll address the questions at the end. We want to make sure that Director Grant is able to get through all the information and presentations
Yes.
to share with us.
And then you can ask anytime if you want to. You can interrupt me if you want to stop.
Well, let's hold off
Okay.
until the end, just because we've got another meeting right after this, and don't want
Okay.
to bleed into that. So
Okay.
just write down your questions, and we'll circle back.
And from that previous pie, you will see that the special revenue sources kind of are made up of these things. The farmers market, we have a small one that we get a small grant from, like DTE for tree replacement. We have some criminal forfeiture funds under special revenues, capital projects, mostly public improvement and convention center. We have internal services that we sometimes charge ourselves for, like, to pay for insurance, engineer service, public service building. Those are some of the other funds that we collect for. And then we have other component funds, which we collect property taxes for. And these are the different not enterprise zones, but these are different, I would say, tax captures that we capture. And a lot of these we pay out to other people, we collect it, and we pay it and disperse it out. So these are other things that we collect revenue for. Let me see if I can do it this way. Okay. So now I'm going down to the general fund. So we came down from like the sky view. Now we're zooming down to the general fund. The general fund is, as you can see, the pie is mostly made of the big three revenue sources are income tax, property taxes, and state revenues. So we see we have other fees, we have building permits, and I wanted you to see the marijuana taxes, the beach parking revenue, transfers and other public safety revenue. Those make smaller slices, but overall, the big three make up about 75% of our general fund revenue. So that's, I wanted you to see the breakout of that. And oh, and with the state share revenue, which is the green slice, that we get money from the state of Michigan that's guaranteed every year, and we also get a smaller slice that's called city, village, township revenues that's not guaranteed, but most of that $6 million is guaranteed by the Constitution and is based off of sales tax. And they have a formula based on the city size and how much state tax that they collect, and they disperse it to the city 6 times a year. So that makes a big chunk of our budget.
Question.
Unless you're confident that your
jotted down.
Yeah,
How
I'm
short is
pretty
your
confident we'll,
presentation?
yeah, I'm
No.
pretty, yeah.
No, that's
You're
fine.
confident that you can get through your presentation?
Oh, yeah,
and
yeah,
take
yes.
questions through. Okay.
Yes, I can.
I want to make sure you have ample time to get through your presentation.
Yes.
If you're confident you can get through it, then we will entertain questions throughout. That way, it is relevant to the slide
Yes.
at hand. So, Commissioner German.
No, on that state share revenue, what is the total amount that we usually get a year for that?
It's you see in that budget on that line, it was about 6.5 million.
Oh,
So it
6.5,
goes
yeah.
about, it varies every year, and
Okay.
sometimes we get more money than they project because it's based off of sales tax. So some quarters or some months they collect more sales tax than they projected, and they pay us out.
In that state level.
Yeah,
Yep.
we get that 6 times a year.
Yeah, okay. That's good. 6 times.
So another thing that we do, we collect property taxes, and the city as a whole, we collect property taxes for all the parcels inside the city. And my treasurer, she collects it and she has to disperse it out to these different buckets. So if you look at this circle, every dollar that you pay is broken down into these buckets. So even though we collect it, we do not get to keep it. We have to disperse those funds to those jurisdictions. But out of every dollar that we collect, the city gets to keep 29 cents of that. So this is a good breakout of, like, you can see how our property taxes work. So if a dollar goes, if we get a dollar, that library gets 6 cents of that. And so, and we do it, and every year we have to settle with the county and make sure that whatever we don't collect in our property taxes, they make us whole. So the county, whatever our role is, we get made whole by the county. So we do a good job at doing that, but it's out of our control. But we collect the current property taxes here to March 1st every year, and then after that we have to turn the delinquent over to the. This is a breakout of how a dollar of property taxes works. Questions about that? Now I'm going to show you the revenue trend of our revenue going back 10 years, and it's going to have the current budget year in there and the projected current year. And this is the breakout of our big three revenue sources: property tax, income tax, and state shared revenue. And you can see that it tends to go up sometimes, but what I'm going to show you in the next couple of slides is what the cost of inflation. It really is not. It doesn't go up as much as you think. So this is the CPI adjusted revenue, and you can see that it's a little more stable and the numbers kind of flatten out. So a dollar worth of 10 years ago is, you see that really now that same dollar doesn't stretch as far. So a dollar 10 years ago is not as worth as much as now. You can see right now, this is a trend chart of our general revenues. And you can see a couple years, and I will go over this later on the fund. You'll see, like, starting 2020, 2021, 23, you'll see that big spike. And that's because we received a lot of money from the governments, federal and state, ARPA, and I will show you later in the charts how much we received from those. Those are one-time sources of revenue, so we can't count on that for long-term things. So we have received an influx of money from the state. And This is kind of a trending thing that shows you how the revenue goes up based it on the CPI adjusted rate. And you can see it's kind of flattens out these amounts over a year, it smooths it out, but you still have those spikes in those years starting 2020, 21, 23. Mostly ARPA. This right here is the one-time sources. Since 2020, the city has received almost $24 million in one-time revenue to deal with the negative impact of COVID. And those are the breakouts of the funds that we received. See, the big one at the bottom is the ARPA Rescue Plan. ARPA is the American Rescue Plan. So we received $22 million that we're still spending, and received some money for public safety, first responders pay, and things like that. So these are one-time revenue sources. So that's why you see those spike in the revenue sources. I'm going to go to the two biggest things that we were talking about last week with the water and sewer rates. You can see that our business type rates, that the sewer fund and the water fund make up almost 100% of this. And the marina, you see that the marina does not generate that much revenue. But these are our two largest sources of, I call enterprise zones or business type things, because we charge a fee. Dan helps us calculate how much expenses are. We determine the rates. You guys determine the rates, and we collect that. And so we have to. It calls the enterprise zone because they're supposed to be sufficient. So whatever is in that fund, we should be self-sufficient on those funds. In this, you will see the business type. You will see the revenue projections over years, and you can see as the water rates and things like go up, those revenue sources are going to increase. This is again a CPI adjusted. It shows that same dollar kind of flattens out over the time, and you can see that we have been increasing our rates, especially in the water and sewer fund, to keep up with the cost to maintain our infrastructure. Staffing. This is the general fund staffing. So pretty much for the general fund, you see the breakout, and most of our expenditures go to police, fire, and pension, and those are our big three. Those make up 75% of our expenditures for the general fund staffing. Police and fire normally are the biggest ones, and then you can see we have a breakout of other departments and how it goes. And for the general fund, salary and benefits account of 61% of our general fund revenue and expenditure. Everything we could collect, 61% of that goes probably to the pay the staff. This is the payroll trend, and you can see over the years, cost of living and benefits and pension costs are continually rising. You can see this with the CPI. You really see that, even though on this chart, the previous chart, you see that big increase, but when you smooth it out, the cost of living and our dollar doesn't stretch as much as the cost of living. It's even though we're paying people more, that dollar doesn't stretch as far as it did in the past. This is overall, this is citywide. This is our costs for all our employees, regardless of what fund it's being paid out of. You can see that public safety and public works pretty much dominate that. And finance and administration is in third, and development services in last, but this is overall. So when you combine all our revenue sources, our salaries only account for 37 to 41% of our overall revenue source. So when the water fund and stuff like the water fund and sewer funds, a lot of that has to go for the assets in the ground. It doesn't go salaries as other funds. This is a payroll trend for the whole entire city, and you can see that it's spiking again, but when you go to this one, it flats out again because our dollar just doesn't stretch and the inflation is just eating up our dollars. And this is the end of my presentation, so if you have any questions, I can hopefully I can help you. I have my assistant, I have my treasurer, and my income tax person here, so I got the big three here to help answering your questions as far as revenue.
Excellent. Thank you, Director Grant. Commissioner Keener.
On slide 4, what does LDFA stand for?
That's the LDFA. That's the local
Development Finance Authority.
Development Finance Authority. That's the tax capture. We have the DDA. We have the TIFA is Tax Increment Finance Associate Authority, and those other ones are. So I just broke those out. So we have certain districts that we collect property taxes for them doing development, and then we collect those property taxes and we pay those out.
You follow up, Commissioner Keener? You said no? Okay. Well, I'm going to piggyback on your question. I'm going to get to you just a second, Commissioner Kilgo. With regard to the LDFA and the $306,000 is collected, what is that a singular project, or is that a number of different projects?
It's a number of projects, and we collect them over a year. So so if they set up a special development authority, they have to file a plan with the state of Michigan, and every year we collect a certain amount until that is satisfied. So they go out mostly 30 years, so like that. So
Okay. So that's not inclusive. I see now Terrace Point here. I was wondering about the Viridian Shores property, but that's broken out separately. Terrace Point.
Yes.
That TIF that's collected. Okay. And right now that's being collected to go towards payment of the remaining of the bonds.
Yes.
On there, which we're expected to pay off.
Yeah,
this year,
we're
next
paying
year?
those off faster than some of those are doing better than we expected, so we hope to pay those off.
Okay. So
Some of
in
them
the
are going
next
to
year
be
they'll
paid
be.
off faster than we thought.
LDFA will be done next year, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Excellent. Thank you, Commissioner Kilgo.
That answered a few of my questions. Can you explain CPI adjusted? I don't.
Have Jonathan come up here for that, because it's hard to put it in simple terminology.
So the advantage of looking at the CPI number is when you're just looking at the whole number over time, the rate of increase in revenues or expenses can get kind of out of whack, especially when inflation starts to increase. And so what we're trying to do is show what those same dollars in current dollars would have looked like 10 years ago. And so that's why in so like in this particular chart, if you look at 1314, the CPI adjusted category for income tax is about 10 million, but in reality we were collecting about 8. But that would be the equivalent of $10 million today. So it's just showing that although we're seeing a healthy growth in our income tax collection, when you adjust that for inflation, it's not quite as dramatic as what you would expect. And that's just to illustrate that although we're seeing an increase in revenues, what we're able to do with that same dollar doesn't go as far.
Okay. Follow-up question on this chart right here. Property taxes are lower budgeted 23-24 than they were in looks like almost 14 and 15. Would that, I mean, I'm guessing that's not taking appraisals into account necessarily, because properties are probably worth more now than they were in 14 and 15. It's just because there were, well, I guess, okay, when you look at the non-CPI number, then it's higher. That makes a little bit more sense. I was going to say, we probably have more people in homes. We're probably collecting more property taxes on more homes in 23, 24 than we were in 14 and 15.
Yeah, but then another thing to keep in mind with income tax growth is because of Headley, the income tax or the property tax growth is capped at 5% or CPI, whichever is lower. I just got nods from over here, so I was doing it right. Whichever is lower, and so when you have inflation that's greater than 5%, which we've had for a couple years, that number starts to depart a bit. So that could account for why in the CPI adjusted revenue trends that it looks like it's, adjusted for inflation, it is a lower value for the dollar currently than it was in a decade ago. And so that that's just a reality of the economic situation that we find ourselves in, which is something unique in the United States over the past 20 years. That just hasn't been the case. So
And just to add a piece to that, in fiscal year 2014 to 2015, the millage rate was maxed out for the city of Muskegon at 10 mills.
Oh, yeah.
Because of what the manager was just speaking on, that millage rate has rolled back slightly in recent years because property values, our assessed values are rising faster than the rate of inflation. And so our millage rate, as I understand it, has decreased in the last 2 years sequentially, and now it's down to about 9.75-ish. Or did it go down further again this year or what?
It's a little bit higher than that, 9.8 something.
Okay.
I can't remember exactly. It hasn't gone down the last 2 years because inflation has been higher than the 5% cap. There has not been a rollback in the last 2 years, but prior to that, for
It was the
I
2
think
years prior.
ago,
Okay.
we had a rollback. And so it's below that 10 mil limit that we're allowed to assess.
Okay. It was about 9.8.
Yeah, thank you. I forgot to
Gotcha.
illustrate.
Follow up, Commissioner Kizner?
Yes, 1 second. The slide with the water, sewer, and marina, the pie chart, yeah, that one. This is annually sewer.
Yeah, this
Revenue.
is for 1 year. This is the revenue that we generate for 1 year.
And then, two questions. One, the majority of this revenue goes directly towards said arena, sewer, and water. Okay. And then, so we handle, in the city, we handle our own sewer. That's not.
We have our own infrastructure and we charge our citizens, but we send our sewer to the county for treatment.
Okay. Okay.
That's about $400,000, $500,000 a month that we pay for that.
I thought it was, okay. That's where I was confused. Okay. I don't have any further questions.
Thank you, Commissioner Kilgore. Commissioners, any other questions? Thoughts right now? Okay. I would just, there was an observation that I had made while looking at that pie chart you just had. Because at first blush I was like, wait a second, like wouldn't sewer be greater than water? Because on our bills we always see sewer being more expensive than water. But that is just our sewer versus the water here is what we're also charging all the other end users, our surrounding municipalities. And so that's why our water revenue exceeds our sewer revenue. But I just wanted to point that out in case anyone else might have been looking at that or at home, like, wait a second.
Yeah, we sell
My
water
sewer
to
bill's
other,
always bigger
we
than my
sell
water
water
bill.
to other municipalities and entities. So
sewer.
and I just wanted to. These are like some of my favorite charts because I just want you to see how much we have. If you look at our budget book, we have probably 100 different revenue sources, and it was like so. Just for us to break down, so if we just broke down, it would have hundreds of little lines. So we just lump a lot of them together. You could really see that the big three are property taxes, income tax, and state. I wanted to make sure the mayor saw marijuana taxes on there.
I was just going to jump off
and
that.
our beach revenue.
Thanks for
beach
bringing
park.
that up because commissioners, I do. It's not something that I'm asking you to make a decision on right now or give necessarily input. You're welcome to give input right now. But as we're moving forward with the budgeting process, I do want us to look at allocating those excise tax revenues that are collected from the cannabis operators to go towards in equal parts our social equity fund that we've been funding from day one with excise tax revenue. So equal parts to our social equity fund, to our parks and recreation. So now we have another stream of revenue going into that. Public safety, and then the fourth one being local streets. Now, all of those three save for local streets are already within the general fund, so we wouldn't necessarily see a significant change in this pie chart here. But if we do move and dedicate some of the money to local streets, it would be transferred from the general fund to local streets. We do not have a funding mechanism. We do not regularly do transfers from our general fund into our local streets. this last year was a bit unique that we were able to move some additional monies into local streets to do 4 different street projects across our city. So my thing is that it'd be nice if we could help bolster the resources available in local streets so that we can do more projects over time. And even if it's not enough in 1 year to do a project, over 2 years it accumulates. Or we can put more resources into potholes with the local streets, and then you got pot dollars fixing potholes. But I just wanted to bring that to your attention, the prospect of using these excise tax dollars. Right now, it's a component goes into a social equity fund, and the rest just goes to the general fund, and is divvied up however.
Can you repeat those 4 categories again?
It is social equity fund, parks and recreation, public safety, and then local streets.
Okay.
And on this pie chart, I just want you to know we're one of the few cities in the state that have an income tax. I think it's only 24 cities in the state that have an income tax. So we're fortunate that we have the flexibility to collect that money. We expect to collect more in the future. Her goal is to collect 20 million next year. No, I always give her some high expectations but yes, but our revenues have been growing with the income tax. A little, like the income tax is kind of like if somebody locates in the city within a month, we should be able to see the withholdings from them. So income tax is unlike property tax. You almost have to wait a year to see those collections. Income tax are almost instantaneously within 30 days. You could see if someone negatively moves out, like a big company moves out the city, it will impact us. If someone big or a big corporation moves into the city, within 30 days we could start seeing revenue increases.
Are you able to share further insights drilling down into the income tax revenue numbers in terms of being able to understand, as the adjustments year to year, how much is perhaps adjustments in wages versus jobs, job increases, more jobs coming online?
We do. We have a detailed thing. We can't give you any details, but we do have categories like corporation withholdings and stuff like that we could give you breakouts. How much we collect, and we do that on a monthly basis, so we can kind of see like, is it our individuals or is it corporations? And most of our income tax is coming from withholdings and we collect it mostly from non-residents. So mostly because the non-residents come to our city, they use our infrastructure, they pound our roads, getting in and out the city. If something happens within the city, they need our fire or police to respond. They're using our resources, so the non-residents are paying their fair share of their wear and tear in our city.
All right.
Question there.
Yes, Commissioner.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. A nice presentation, Director Grant. I really like it, how you have it detailed, broken down. Okay, ladies.
Jessica,
Okay.
Mustache.
Well, credit
Thank you
to
so
all
much.
of you. Question on the marijuana taxes with the social equity. That's something I've been passionate about when, I introduced that to the city. Now, what percentage of social equity of this marijuana taxes are being applied to social equity, and is it being distributed to or allocated to anyone applying for services or programs or things related to social equity? Because I'm getting a lot of questions about the availability for funds for certain purposes and projects when it comes to social equity revenue.
Yeah, we put 30 or 35% of the social equity money into the Muskegon Social Equity Program. And we have 3 different main categories how we spend the funding. I'm going to be coming, I believe, next month at the work session to talk about how we want to spend this year's money. About 35% of that money is set aside for grants, but we're having a real hard time spending that money. We're not seeing the interest that we did previously for the grant money.
Okay, do you have a ballpark figure about what dollar amount we have specifically?
Just for grants?
Yeah.
I think it's about 60 or 70,000. We're anticipating Green Room Gardens to have some new students for their training That hasn't come in yet, but they've been the only ones that have showed interest this year on a grant.
Okay, and those grants are like in increments of about $5,000 at the
Yes,
max.
yeah, for the students it'll cover the entire course, which is $5,000.
Okay, all right. All right, thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
Sorry, and I'm
Commissioner
sorry I was
Gorman.
late. So what is the total 2024-2025 projected revenue then?
It's, right now, we're working on that. It's about 40 million.
Okay.
So I could get the exact numbers. We're starting the budget process right now.
Okay.
It's a little more than 40 million. For general fund. For general fund.
Are we worried about any shortcomings? I'm just sorry. I walked in and I heard like one-time cost, dollars aren't going, so that's why is there anything you want us to keep an eye on?
I think, like, we just have to be careful with the one-time costs that we have to be, aware that those revenue sources are not coming back
Okay.
again.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
that's what we're trying to relay that to the staff. So it's like, so we had a couple good years with revenue. Do not expect those. But even though revenues from income tax and property taxes have been growing, but those ARPA monies are not coming again.
Right. Thank you, Director. When you come back to us with that, can you show us that visually then of like the projected revenue for the year and then what's not reoccurring revenue for the next year? So then we can compare it against the costs that we know will go forward, just so then.
Yes.
We're- Thank you.
Yes, I will.
One more question, please.
Yes, Commissioner Keenan.
What slide is that has the one-time income on it?
I can show you. It's
This is just so tiny.
right here's on the screen. I have it.
There we go. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I have no more questions.
Just circling back on the cannabis dollars, because in the pie chart it does reflect the marijuana excise tax revenues collected, but just want to point out that the other pieces of the pie chart, income tax and property taxes, are also inclusive of dollars collected from the cannabis industry. So we're probably looking at over $1 million collected from the cannabis industry alone that supports our general fund operations, as well as the capital improvements as necessary. So I mean that's over 2.5% of our general fund budget right there. So on the heels of
And I
the
just
marijuana holiday of 420, thank you to all of our cannabis operators and investors in our city.
we're scaling back. We think the excise tax for marijuana tax is probably peaking, if not this year or next year, because we have competition from Ohio, and so people are not going to come from Ohio to come to Michigan to buy marijuana if they have it legalized there. So might see it. We're speculating that we're going to see either it's going to flatten out or start to go down.
Yeah, very, very likely. We're now the second largest market in the country after California.
It's crazy.
At $3.2 billion, I think, is the projected revenues for this year. But yeah, I think it's on the ballot in Ohio to legalize cannabis this
I think
fall.
they passed it, but I
Did
don't
it already
know.
pass?
Yeah.
Okay.
My brother lives there, so I know.
Oh, okay. So yeah, that will definitely have an impact on sales here in Michigan. All right,
Yeah.
thank you. Any other questions or thoughts or?
I wanted to go back to the beginning here. One of the reasons we wanted to have this conversation, particularly because we've got 3 new commissioners, is when you get the budget, we spend a lot of time talking about the general fund in the budget, that 40 million that we were talking about just a minute ago, and that does make up about half the budget, but then the other half in these other funds, we just want to make sure that we're pointing out that there is more than just a general fund. But the other thing is that for the most part, monies from one fund do not flow into another fund. So they're separate buckets. And so although we have this overall large amount of money, it's not, we can't take money from major streets or business type activities and use that for police or fire or staffing at City Hall. Those all come out of that general fund bucket. So the majority of the individual services that we offer come out of that one half of the pie, and then those other services that we offer, a lot of times they're going to have their own bucket of money that they're operating under. that's why we spend so much time talking about the general fund, because that's the one that gets sliced up the most. And that's where things get the tightest, trying to get things through to balance out. And I also wanted to follow up on a question that Commissioner Gorman asked a second ago about those one-time revenues. For the most part, this coming year, those one-time revenues are pretty much, with the exception of the parks.
The parks is pretty much.
Those one-time revenues, sorry, I'm trying to read and click, are starting to phase out, and they're going to be going into capital projects, not other type of projects. So those funds for replacing the playgrounds and things of that nature, that's where that money will come out of.
Cool. Thank you.
And I just want to make sure that Director Grant and his team get, all the credit for doing this presentation and putting this together. They did really a lot of hard work to get this ready for everybody today. We wanted to make sure that we spent a little bit of time just talking about revenue, because it is important to understand where these different monies are flowing in from as we talk about distributing them out to deliver services to our residents. So,
Thank you, Mr. Manager.
You
Thank you,
don't
Grant,
Any other
and the
questions?
entire finance team.
Yep, I'd like to thank my staff and, yep.
Commissioner, welcome, Commissioner Cochin. Before we wrap up, do you happen to have any questions regarding the budget? And now, of
No.
course, we're going to have subsequent budget meetings. This is just a special meeting for an initial review of revenues. We're going to have a special one focused on expenses, and then we'll be getting into the budget process in greater depth after that. So you'll have plenty of opportunities to dig it into it and ask questions later. But is there anything top of mind that you wish to add or ask right now?
Not at top of mind. I just wanted to thank staff for putting everything together, and I'm looking forward to digging into it more later on.
Thank you, Commissioner Cochin. And thank you all. All right, we are going to adjourn, but we have another meeting, so don't go anywhere, at 5:30. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Actually, I'm sorry. Just a second. This is a public meeting and OMA regulated. Is there anyone in the audience? Get ready to go to the phones too. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to give public comment at this time? You have an opportunity to speak and give up to 3 minutes of comments to the City Commission. Seeing no one in the audience, I am going to go to the phones. You're welcome to call in and provide your public comment. That phone number is 231 7246721. I think.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, 231. I should have this jotted down on this dais right here. 231-724-6721. If you do wish to call in and give public comment at this time. Otherwise, we will be getting into our general session of the City Commission at 5:30. There'll be public comment at the beginning of the meeting on agenda items and additional public comment at the end of the meeting on anything you wish to speak on. And we also have a public hearing. So there'll be public comment on. So again, that phone number right now is 231-724-6721. All right, if there are no phone-in comments, then I would entertain a motion to adjourn, briefly.
So move.
We have a motion by Commissioner German, supported by Vice Mayor St. Clair to adjourn. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. We are adjourned.